I'm a survivor of an abusive relationship. There are some very important lessons that I want to share with you. If you're single and want to avoid getting into an abusive relationship, or you think you might already be in one, this is an important video that can help you or even save your life. It was a miracle that I managed to escape despite going through a near impossible cross-border divorce involving some highly complex child custody issues. In the end, I got my divorce, I got the sole custody of my child, and I finally come to a peaceful stage of my life where I can finally feel physically safe and free and loved and more ready to talk about the lessons I learned. Before I begin, I want to share with you a few very important messages that I think everyone should know. I was extremely lucky to have survived an abusive relationship. I feel almost compelled to speak up because domestic abuse is a very common problem worldwide. I want to be a part of the community to dismantle the social stigma around divorce and domestic abuse. In many parts of the world, particularly within certain Asian cultures, divorce is unfortunately still considered a family disgrace, a failure, and even a curse, which makes it very hard to address it openly within families, let alone seek public support or pull together resources to help those in need. Domestic abuse is an even more sensitive topic than divorce. Our society tends to want to ignore it or even normalize it. This social stigma can bring shame, guilt, and embarrassment, which can make domestic abuse victims feel isolated, helpless, and even forgotten. I experienced all these emotions, if not more. Being silent also sends the wrong message to the abusers that they can keep doing whatever they're doing without any consequences or without anyone knowing about it. So I want to ask you this. If you find this video helpful after watching it, please like it, leave a comment so more people can find it, and please share it with people you think might need it. 2. It is very important to understand that divorce is not always wrong or an evil choice. I'm not encouraging people to divorce because I strongly believe that all relationships need a lot of hard work and compromise. But for some people, such as myself, divorce can be the best decision or your only choice if your other option is staying in a relationship where you don't even feel physically safe. Let's remember that in some parts of the world, divorce is not even an option even today, especially if you're a woman. So given this context, I think those of us who live in more developed countries are very privileged in the sense that we at least have a choice to take control of our own lives. So let's not forget that you have the freedom to choose. 3. This video is not the full story of my divorce. I have excluded a lot of details because I still don't feel comfortable talking too much about it. If you have any questions or comments, please be kind with your words. It took me a lot of courage to make this video about such a sensitive topic. I'm only one of the many victims out there who managed to escape. I promise that I will read all of your comments and questions, but I would only answer those that I feel comfortable addressing, so I hope you would understand. I hope this video can give you support, hope, and guidance from someone who has been through absolute hell and reincarnated. Remember that you always have a choice and you're not alone. Part 1. Recognizing the signs of an abusive relationship is the most important lesson I learned. It took me a while to recognize the signs because they were not always clear. They could be subtle, manipulative, and they are often masked as love or concern, at least in my case. Domestic abuse is not always physical. It can also be verbal abuse, such as humiliating, threatening, or minimizing you to strip you of your sense of safety and well-being. There is also emotional abuse, such as cutting you off from the outside world so you're easier to manipulate and control. And there is economic abuse, where your partner takes away your earnings or not allow you to work so you remain dependent on them. I think it is very important to remember that every abusive relationship is different, which means it could be just one type of abuse or a combination of different types. Not all the signs feelings may be present, here is what I have experienced and what I've learned. Your partner wants to control every aspect of your life, from whom you can see, whom you can talk to or spend time with. They might isolate you from your family and friends to cut you off from your support network, so you become completely dependent on them. I made the biggest mistake of moving to my partner's hometown with our newborn child. It was a foreign city to me, with a very different culture and language, far away from my family and friends. Moving to a city that was so different was not what I wanted, but my partner was insistent, and he can be very persuasive. He promised me so many things, such as hiring a nanny of my choice and that I would have the complete freedom to visit my parents and friends back home anytime I wanted. But after I moved there, none of these promises were delivered. The only people that I knew were him, his parents, and his friends. There was no nanny. His parents started coming over to the home every day, early morning till 11 p.m. There was no privacy, and it was a little bit weird, but communicating my discomfort to my partner did not help. So I would just stay in my bedroom with my newborn most of the time when my partner was at work. I wasn't allowed to step out with my newborn because his parents would get paranoid about the baby getting sick or hurt. I was not allowed to get involved in any matters that would help me integrate into the new city, including handling the utility bills, because my partner insisted that he would take care of absolutely everything, and he only wanted me to take care of the baby. I also wasn't allowed to visit my family and friends back home, which I will share more. In the beginning, I thought all of these were expressions of love and concern. Soon it became really uncomfortable. I felt like I was being confined, monitored, and controlled. Looking back, failing to put my foot down ended up isolating myself in a foreign city with no one else by my side, and that was terrible. Always choose to live in a city where you feel comfortable and safe with a reliable support network of family and friends. This seems like overly simple advice, I know, but you would be surprised how often it is being overlooked. So many people, including some of my friends, move to another country for their partners, and some don't even speak the native language there. Many cases work out fine, but some don't, like in my case. So choose to reside in a city that at least has convenient transport, so you won't be stranded in a remote location in case you need to get out of town for whatever reasons. You want to maximize your mobility so you can go in and out of where you live with relative ease, rather than having to drive like 5 hours to the closest airport or train station. Having a robust legal and social infrastructure is also very essential. It is there to protect your safety and well-being when you need it. Legal infrastructure includes not only legal regulations, but also the accessibility, the quality, and the cost of legal advice, planning, and solutions. Social infrastructure includes vital services such as social services and healthcare facilities. Another sign of an abusive relationship is when your partner uses fear and intimidation to maintain control. In the first month after we got married, my partner began showing a side of him that I had never seen before. He would often have these intense anger outbursts triggered by the smallest interactions, such as a polite reminder from the waiter about a minimum charge at a restaurant or our newborn crying. These outbursts very often involved property destruction, such as throwing furniture or public screaming. In the beginning, I thought they were one-off incidents because it could be just him having a bad day, right? But I was wrong. I started to see a pattern. My fear started to grow. What bothered me a lot was there were no signs of this side of him when we were dating. I started to get anxious because I just wasn't sure when he would have another anger outburst and whether he would hurt me or my child. It was like living with Jekyll and Hyde. I especially remember this one time when I had to hide in our bedroom closet while I was pregnant because he had an anger outburst after he came home from work. He threw our coffee table table across the living room against the wall. I was so scared that he would hurt me. I wanted to leave the apartment, but it was snowing outside. I had nowhere to go. It was all very frightening. After a series of these episodes, I told my partner one day that I really wanted to go home and see my family, but he got really angry. He threatened that if I walked out the door, he wouldn't allow me back in and that everything would be over. And then I remember he would go to the bathroom, put on his plastic gloves. He would just start cleaning the bathroom mirror like frantically. I survived by walking on eggshells every day, trying to do the right thing, just pretend to be happy all the time and that everything was normal because I was really afraid to trigger him. If you're in a similar situation or notice behavior from your partner that threatens your safety or worries you, it is important to prioritize your well-being and assess the overall health of your relationship. Trust your instinct, but don't do anything radical unless you already have an exit strategy, which I'll talk about in a minute. Delay any plans to have children because having kids will not save your relationship or improve the quality of an abusive marriage. You will just be creating more victims, introducing additional complexities, and creating more pain for yourself in the end. It is also unfair to your future children because they wouldn't want to be caught in this situation if they could, right? So just stay put and focus on your safety first until you have an exit strategy. Another sign that you're in an abusive relationship is when your partner distorts your reality, making you doubt your perceptions and memories. They may deny or minimize their abusive behaviors, shift the blame onto you, or make you feel guilty about the abuse. I remember reaching out to my partner's parents when my partner started to get physically aggressive, such as shoving me and pushing me, and started to lie about his behaviors. But it wasn't of any help because his parents would always normalize his behaviors and ask me to forgive him because it is part of the wife's duty. And if my partner was there with us, he would often make up another story, blame it on me, or even deny that anything happened at all. I felt increasingly frustrated and helpless. After a while, I remember even beginning to doubt myself. I started to think perhaps the physical aggression was nothing too much to worry about, even though it was clearly escalating. I became so confused. I was overwhelmed by sadness and constant fear every day. Seeking help from your partner's family and friends is ineffective in most cases because they're often aware of your partner's manipulative behaviors and they likely will not support you. Seek help immediately before the situation worsens by reaching out to someone whom you can trust. If there's no one near you, search for organizations around you that can help. Don't wait and don't doubt yourself because if you don't feel safe, it is not normal. But please remember to not trigger your partner until you have a plan to safely leave the relationship or the situation. You want to get out of the relationship unhurt and alive. Part 2. The decision to leave. Leaving an abusive relationship is not a simple task. It is even more challenging if you've got kids. One very important thing to remember is that people who resort to any kind of abuse or violence rarely change. They may apologize, promise to change, and plead for forgiveness, but the cycle of abuse tends to repeat itself. It repeated so many times in my story where my partner would profusely apologize, kneel on the floor, and write heartfelt letters and sincerely promise to change. Every time was very touching, so every time I believed him. But he never changed. So if you're in an abusive relationship, no matter how many times your partner insists they will change or how many times the people around you ask you to give them a chance, understand that true change is very rare. You have to accept that you're in an abusive relationship and you need to get out before it is too late. The decision to leave was one of the hardest choices I've ever made because our child was involved. I had to face the truth that that staying in an abusive marriage would be detrimental to my child's development. I had to overcome the intense fear of fighting for my child's custody against my partner, whom I feared so much. I had to navigate the challenges of starting over and overcome the uncertainties of raising my child by myself. But what I learned is that once you have made the decision to leave, the path ahead of you becomes clear. Now it is time to take action. Practically speaking, you need to do 4 things. 1. Have an exit strategy to safely escape from your partner. Make sure you have backup plans and rehearse step by step in your head from what you need to bring with you the moment you step out of the door, the means of transport and the transport schedule, and find a safe place to stay in case your partner and family and friends go after you. Think through every single detail because failure is not an option for you. And remember, timing is everything. 2. Find an experienced lawyer who protects your interests and find the best lawyer that you can afford, because this is one thing that you do not want to cheap out on. Talk to another lawyer for a second opinion. Some lawyers may not charge you for first-time consultations. Do your own research on legal issues so you have some baseline knowledge of your situation, so you're better equipped to discuss with your lawyer the next steps. Ask if your lawyer can offer a fixed project fee rather than charging you an hourly rate. And some lawyers may consider taking in domestic abuse cases as pro bono projects. If your city or state has a system that offers you free legal advice, explore that, but bear in mind how long it takes to process, and you might not have the option to choose whom you want to work with. 3. Secure financial resources so you can settle the legal bills and provide for yourself and your children at least for the short to medium term. Ideally, you have been saving up and investing wisely to generate passive income. Other options include borrowing, which I normally do not recommend because it can just bring you more stress, or you can work to save up first before you execute your exit strategy. 4. Find support from trusted people who can offer reliable and practical help on a day-to-day basis. This could be offering you advice from another perspective, taking care of your children while you're in meetings with your lawyer, and providing you emotional support, which I think is critical. Leaving an abusive relationship is a complex process. It is not a single event. It can take months to plan and execute your exit strategy. You want to get it right the first time. Take your time to map out all possible scenarios. Take necessary precautions. I think the most important thing is maximize your safety and minimize retaliation from your partner, because you cannot help your kids if you're hurt or if you're not alive. It was a brave and lonely war for me. There were so many times I felt paralyzed by the fear and the complexity of it all. Giving up was not an option because I was extremely determined to fight for my child's custody, even if I had to lose everything. Miraculously, every time I thought I reached a dead end, a window would always open. I still believe that it was a miracle that we made it out alive and unhurt. Part 3. Rebuilding your life. Once you have left an abusive relationship and found a support network, understand that the most dangerous part is probably behind you. Healing from the trauma of an abusive relationship can be a very challenging process. It is normal to experience a range of emotions from guilt, sadness, fear of your partner's retaliation, and a lot of uncertainty for your future. You might have nightmares and flashbacks, struggle with trust issues, and have difficulty forming new relationships and rebuilding your self-esteem. It took me a very long time to slowly get out of the darkness and start over from ground zero. I learned that it is not a linear process. Sometimes you need to backtrack or fall back a little to go forward. Don't rush your recovery because it takes time to process your experiences and learn coping strategies. Rebuilding your life also involves practical aspects like finding a new place to live and regaining your financial independence by securing a job or a career that gives you flexibility as a working parent. It can be very daunting, but remember that each step forward, no matter how small it is victory. Part 4. Lessons I learned before, during, and after leaving my dysfunctional relationship. It's very important not to judge a person by its cover, especially when it comes to identifying abusers. My ex-partner, for example, has external qualities that seem so positive. In fact, 95% of the time, he presents himself as the perfect partner. However, the hidden 5% eclipses all the good aspects. It is crucial to look beyond the surface level when evaluating a person's character, and this takes time, which leads me to the next point. If it is too good to be true, it probably is. Do not rush into marriage when everything is rosy. Get to know your partner for at least 2 years before considering getting married, because you're probably still in the honeymoon phase before the 2-year mark. This means you might not be able to see clearly. Make sure to experience enough disagreements so you have a better understanding of how you cope with your differences as a couple, and whether your partner has a stable temperament and the patience to work things out with you. Many people assume safety as a default, but this is not always guaranteed. When seeking a partner, you want to prioritize finding someone who is kind and emotionally stable. If you do not feel safe in a relationship, your focus will shift from building a connection with your partner to self-protection because of fear. Trust your instincts. If you have even the slightest doubt about marrying your partner, which I did, don't do it. And if you're already in a relationship and you're uncomfortable with your partner's behaviors, especially if you feel unsafe physically or emotionally, take time to observe and address your doubts in your relationship. Humans are creatures of habit and routine. The last thing you want is to rush into a marriage or stay in a relationship only to end up in a divorce or get hurt. Don't romanticize marriage. If your relationship is not already a happy one, getting married will not make it better. Marriage is an extension of your current relationship with a lot more future variables, such as whether to have kids, where to live, religion, work ambition, lifestyle preferences, investment and spending habits, etc. Talk about these practical matters before you get married to avoid disappointment. Love is not enough. Do not underestimate the challenges that marriages can bring, especially cross-cultural marriages. When couples do not share the same language, cultural backgrounds, or upbringing, it can cause significant stress and disagreements. Imagine not being able to articulate yourself when discussing major issues with your partner or in heated arguments. Cultural differences could also manifest in gender expectations and who holds the final decision-making power in the home. These factors can add layers of complexity that cannot be addressed by love alone. Divorce or leaving a long-term relationship should not be an easy or impulsive action. It should be your absolute last resort, especially if you have kids. Many of us know that divorce can have potential detrimental effects on children, especially those between 5 to 13 years old. But it is also important to understand that staying in an abusive relationship can be more detrimental or even dangerous to you and your children, especially if the abuser's behaviors escalate. This is when divorce can be your only option. So please stop telling yourself that you will stay in an abusive relationship for the sake of your children, or that you will wait until the kids are grown or when they go to university. Because when you suffer, understand that your children also suffer. You find your tribe. One of the most valuable lessons I learned is you truly discover who your people are after a divorce. People who genuinely love you will be there for you to lend a helping hand, provide emotional support, and offer practical assistance. There are simply no excuses and no justifications for not being there for you if they really love you. The good news is you only need a few people in your inner circle. You actually might be surprised who remains there in your circle for you, because challenging times can help filter out superficial friendships and in some cases even family members who actually do not care. If you witness or suspect domestic abuse with your family and friends, please speak up. Your intervention can offer a lifeline to someone in desperate need who is too afraid to leave. If you find this video helpful, please like it and leave a comment so more people can find it, and please share it with others who might need it.